Hi Year 3 and welcome to Wednesday's reading lesson. We're going to start by looking at this picture together. What do you think the test is that Merlin has set? Here's a picture of it. What can you see in the picture? What information can you retrieve? Can you infer? That means look at what it is and have a think and a bit of a guess about what you think the test is, and then make a prediction. Did the test work? Why did he choose this test? Hopefully you've had a little think, okay? Now, I would love to hear all of your ideas, and I would like you to send them, please, into the Year 3 email along with the rest of your work from today's lesson. Our learning objective today is to explain using evidence from the text. Have a look at the 5 words on the screen. Can you pause the video and have a go at saying them yourself? Well done. I hope you enjoyed having a go at saying the words on the screen. Now we're going to go through, say it, shout it, whisper it, clap it and act it between us. Are you ready? We're going to start with wizard. 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 How many syllables? Well done, it's got 2. Now we're going to act it out. Next one, blushed. Are you ready? Blushed. 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 How many syllables? Well done, 1. Now we're going to act out blushed. Next one is armour. 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 How many syllables? 2. Well done. Now we're going to act it out. Next one is scowled. Are you ready? Scowled. 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 How many syllables? Well done, 1. Now we're going to act it out. Now we're on to the final word. Are you ready? Polish. 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 How many syllables? Well done, 2. And now we're going to act it out. As I'm reading the text to you, I would like you to listen out for any of these words. And if you hear them, I would like you to do the action. Now we're going to have a go at reading these tricky words. Now the top 3 in red are the same as they have been all week. We've got knights, enemies, dignity. What is the root word in the word smelling? What's the root word? Well done, it's smell, okay? And what suffix have they put on the end? Ing, well done. What spelling rule can you see in the word greatest? Now, first of all, think about, is it a prefix or a suffix that's been added to the root word? Well done, it's a suffix. And the letters in the suffix are E-S-T. So our root word is great, and we have added the letters, the suffix E-S-T, est, which makes it the superlative. We've got great, greater, and the greatest, means the best of the bunch. So the superlative suffix est goes on the end of great. Today I'm going to reread chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Merlin and the Lost King of England. As you're listening today, I would like you to join in. You can see the words on the screen, and we're going to try echo reading, which is when I read and you also read along at home. Let's give it a go. Chapter 1. Long, long ago, the world's greatest wizard was in a muddle. Drat! Merlin shouted. His pet rat turned purple. "Help!" he cried. His rubbish bin exploded and showered him with paper. "I know I had it somewhere," moaned Merlin. Gwen, his niece, skipped into the room carrying a tea tray. She almost dropped it when she saw the mess. "What's the matter, Uncle Merlin?" she asked. "It seems," said Merlin with great dignity, "that I have lost the King of England." "How did you do that?" gasped Gwen. Merlin blushed. "You must stop doing this," she said, wagging her wooden spoon at him. "Last week it was my cat." "Ah, yes," said Merlin. His cheeks went even pinker. "You turned poor Tiddles into a fish. It took me ages to find her in the castle moat," said Gwen. "I have to practice," puffed Merlin. "Thankfully, Tiddles was the only one to swim into my net when I called. Here, here, kitty, kitty." Everyone was watching. "Do you know how silly I felt?" asked Gwen. "No," said Merlin. "Very," snapped Gwen. Merlin moved a big blue frog off the table. "I am sorry about that, my dear," he said, "but I will feel even sillier if I have to admit I've lost our future king." Gwen poured him a cup of tea. "Why did you hide him in the first place?" she asked. "The heir to the throne has many enemies. I wanted him to be safe until we needed him," said Merlin. "So I put him away somewhere." "Can you not bring him back with a spell?" Gwen asked. "I would if I could remember his name," said Merlin. He scratched his head. "Was it Arnold? Adam? Artichoke?" "I hope not," Gwen laughed. "I know. You should set a test that only he can pass and make all the knights take it." Merlin clapped his hands. "Excellent!" he cried. "I thought I had all the brains in the family, but it seems you have some too." "Just a few," said Gwen. She waved her wooden spoon and cast a secret spell to tidy up his mess. Chapter 2. Arthur was in the tent preparing the armour for the joust. His foster brother, Sir Kay, came in. He didn't look happy. "Artie, what have you done to my shield? It's very shiny, but it smells of flowers. I can't scare my enemies smelling of violets," said Sir Kay. Arthur jumped up and gave the shield a final polish. "Stop moaning, Kay," said Arthur. "I used a new mixture that I made up myself. The old stuff was useless. See, your shield has never looked so good." "Oof," grunted Sir Kay. "Boys," called Sir Ector, striding into the tent, "I've just come from the town. Merlin has set a test for every knight in the land. The winner gets to be king." "Can I try?" asked Sir Kay. "Of course," said his father. "And me?" asked Arthur. Sir Ector put his hand on his foster son's shoulder. "Artie, you are only a squire," said Sir Ector. "You can't take a test like this until you are older." Arthur scowled. He felt that he would make a very good king if he was given the chance. He always had lots of ideas. It would be much more fun to have a kingdom in which to try them out. "Not fair," he muttered. "Yes, it is," said Sir Ector. "Now, please get my weapons ready for the joust this afternoon. Kay and I are off to take the test." Left alone in the tent, Arthur polished the armour until it shone like the sun. He couldn't wait to grow up and be a knight. He did a final check on the weapons. Oh no! Sir Ector's sword was nowhere to be seen. With a terrible sinking feeling, Arthur realised that he had used it to stir his polish mixture. He had left it in the kitchen at home. Arthur had to think quickly. He needed another sword, and soon. He stepped out of the tent and made his way through the camp. It was empty because all the knights were at Merlin's test. Arthur wondered what the wizard had asked them to do. Fight a dragon, tame a wild wolf.
When Arthur walked into the town, a big crowd was coming the other way. All the knights were very cross. "It is impossible," said Sir Ector. "Merlin's finally lost his marbles," exclaimed Sir Kay. Everyone had failed Merlin's test. "Let's go and start the joist," suggested Sir Ector. "Good idea," said Sir Kay. "Are you coming, Artie?" Arthur shook his head. "I've got something I have to do first," he said. "I won't be long."
It's my turn to answer a question first. Remember, my Viper skill today is explain. Why did Merlin hide the King of England? So I'm going to look back through the text and find the page in chapter 1 that I need to answer this question. I'll show you this page now. After reading through the page from the text again, I have come up with my answer. I think Merlin hid the King of England to protect him and to keep him safe. It says in the text, the heir to the throne has many enemies. I wanted to keep him safe. This tells us that he could have been in danger. In my answer, I have told you what I think is the right answer, but I've also made sure that I have used evidence from the text to support my reasoning. Okay, then at the end I've said this, it tells us that he could have been in danger. I've explained why I've used that piece from the text. Let's see if you can have a go at a question. Here's your question to have a go at. How did Arthur feel when he realised he didn't have Sir Ector's sword? And I've given you a couple of sentence starters. I think he felt because in the text it says, so supporting your answer with evidence from the text. And I will put on the next slide the page from the book that you will need to answer this question. The Chilly 1 question today is, how did Merlin feel when Gwen was telling him to stop? I will put the page of the text that you need up next if you're answering Chilly 1. The Chilly 2 question today is, why was Arthur angry about not being able to go to take the test? I will again put the page of the book that you will need up next. Your Chilly 3 question today is to explain why Sir Kay thought Merlin had lost his marbles. First of all, you'll have to think about what that means, lost his marbles. And then have a look in the text that I will put up next to see if you can understand why they thought that about Merlin. Remember to use the evidence from the text in your answer.
Before we end today's lesson with a little bit more of Fizzlebert's Stump, I'd just like to congratulate a few children on some of the work that we have received. Kaylee from 3C has written a wonderful paragraph about Fizzlebert's Stump, and she has included some emphasis by underlining the words that she would emphasise when reading. This was clear for me when I read through the text to see where I needed to emphasise and use expression. Well done, Kaylee. You've earned yourself 2 dojo points. Also, well done to Madison in 3P. You have made a really good prediction about what you think will happen in Merlin and the Lost King. You have used what you already knew about the text to make your predictions, and you think that he will find the key, but at the end. You also made a good prediction that you think he would have hidden the king somewhere silly, because he seems quite forgetful. Well done for using evidence from the text. 2 dojo points for you too.
Okay, we're going to read a little bit more of Fizzlebert's Stump. Now remember to turn off all those distractions, find yourself somewhere comfortable to sit, to listen to the story. Can you remember what happened with Fizzlebert just before we finished yesterday? What was he sent to clean? Well done, the bathroom, wasn't he? And he'd met a friend who was working downstairs. Can you remember what his friend was called? Kevin, okay? So we're on to chapter 8.
in which a search is organised and in which a search runs into difficulties. While Fizz was trapped in the Stinkthrottle's house, life was going on just as normal back at the circus. It wasn't until his mum and dad stopped for their afternoon tea break that they first realised they hadn't seen him around for a while. They'd skipped lunch, both being so engrossed with various bits of circus business, rehearsing their routines, obviously, but other important things too. His dad, for example, has his moustache trimmed by the circus barber cum sword swallower, and his mother did an interview with the local newspaper, which ended abruptly when the reporter's notebook got eaten by Fish, the sea lion. At first, they didn't worry too much, assuming Fizz was just in someone's caravan. But once his dad had looked all over and had come up with nothing, they began to take it more seriously. At that point, his mother went straight to her caravan, only tripping over her clown shoes once and impulsively squirting the ringmaster in the face with water when he came over to say, "Isn't it beautiful weather today, Gloria?" Once there, she got a sponge and wiped her clown face right off. "Okay," she said, "let's go about this logically. We need to find out who last saw Fizz." With her pink human face showing, she was organised and sensible, and anyone who saw her in action wouldn't realise how worried she was feeling. They wouldn't have realised she was worried about Fizz if she had still been wearing her clown face either, not because she hid her worry so well, but because she looked like a clown. "When did you last see him?" she asked her husband. "Well, I saw him," he said, pausing to think back through his day. At breakfast." "After that?" "Well, he went off for his classes, didn't he?" "Of course. Where's his timetable?" Fizz's timetable, which listed who he saw on that day, was stuck to the little fridge door with a magnet. A quick glance at that showed that his first class had been with Dr. Surprise from 10 to 11. At 11:30, he saw Mr. Bleeny, the circus's sawdust wrangler. In the circus, sawdust wrangling was a very important job. Outside a circus, not generally so important. After lunch, he was due to visit Madame Plum de Matant, but his dad had bumped into her while he was looking, and she'd told him Fizz hadn't turned up, which had secretly been a relief to her, since she still couldn't speak French. "Fine, let's go see Dr. Surprise first, and then old Bleeny," said his mum, who I shall call Mrs. Stump, because it doesn't seem right to keep saying Fizz's mum, or to call her Gloria, which was her real name, or Gloriousus, which was her clown name. The fumbling Glorioususes in full. When Mr. and Mrs. Stump reached Dr. Surprise's caravan, they knocked on the door. "Hang on a moment," a voice came from within. "I'm just getting out of bed. I wasn't expecting anyone." "We just wanted to ask you a question," Mr. Stump said. "Did you see Fizz this morning? Did he come for his lesson?" "Fizz?" called the doctor. "Fizz?" He sounded like he was trying to remember something, as if the name sounded somewhat familiar, but it seemed that whatever bell it was ringing were in a church tower several miles away over rolling countryside, and only the faintest of tinkles were rolling into his ears. "Fizzlebert!" Mrs. Stump called up to the window through which the conversation was taking place. "Our son! You know him!" Dr. Surprise opened the door. He was pulling his braces up over his shirt, and he had pink creases all over one side of his face, as if he'd been sleeping on something wrinkly. "Fizzlebert?" he said. "Describe him to me." "He's our boy, Dr. Surprise. Don't be daft. You know him. You've known him for years. You were the doctor who delivered him." Amazingly, Dr. Surprise had once been a medical doctor, but that, as are so many things, is a different story entirely. "Ah, now, that sounds familiar," he said. He paused and looked at Mrs. Stump, as if trying to place her face. Then his own face suddenly lit up. "Short chap? Well, yes, he's a boy. Your son?" "Yes." "Called Fizzlebert Stump?" "Yes." That's a coincidence. What? I know some Stumps. They live round here somewhere. Dr. Surprise? That's us, Mr. Stump said impatiently. He flexed his biceps and tattoos danced across his arms. Oh, yes, I see. Of course you are. Well, I saw him just this morning, your boy. Little Fizzlebert Stump. It all comes flooding back. I remember it as if it were only yesterday. It was this morning, Doctor. He came here, the small gentleman, and we studied the great battles of history. And then he... Dr. Surprise's face stopped. He never moved his head much, far too professional to be animated, but up to now he had been smiling and rolling his eyes as if playing a game. The long loop of thin hair that coiled round his head had been flapping in the late afternoon breeze. But now, suddenly, that all stopped. His hair settled. He looked serious. We had our lesson, he said, and then he went to the library. Are you saying that he hasn't come back yet? The library? What library? asked Mrs. Stump. The town library. Dr. Surprise pointed in the building's direction, even though half the circus, a park, a duck pond and a row of trees lay in between. Didn't he tell you? Mr. and Mrs. Stump looked at each other. He didn't tell me, she said. Did he tell you? No, he answered. He didn't come and find me. I was only over there lifting a horse in the air. He was returning a book What book? Mrs. Stump interrupted. It was a library book, Dr. Surprise continued. He was worried now. I said he should ask you. You know I would tell him that, don't you? Where would Fizz get a library book? He said a friend had given it to him, something like that. Let me try to remember. He banged the side of his head as if it might knock loose the memory. But other than freeing some sparks which flew out of the opposite ear, it had no effect. A friend? asked Mr. Stump, sounding a little surprised. Oh, said Mrs. Stump. Last night, after the show, he was talking to some local kids. They were having a laugh together. It must have belonged to one of them. They must have lent it to him. It was due back tomorrow, Dr. Surprise added. He was going to do a good deed. But he's not come back, Mr. Stump said, looking Dr. Surprise in the eyes with a look that might have been angry if it wasn't so worried. It's only 5 minutes away, the doctor said quietly. In less than 5 minutes, an expedition was organised. Mr. and Mrs. Stump, along with a couple of riggers who volunteered, Dr. Surprise and Captain Fox Dingle, who needed to take Charles the lion for a walk anyway, started out across the park to visit the library. Fish, the sea lion, followed along, keeping out of Charles's way, but looking hopeful. Okay, we're going to stop there for today. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you for tomorrow's lesson. Bye.